welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, president of Texas Values. Great to be with you on another glorious week in the state of Texas. I think I was out last week because I was at the U.S. Supreme Court, and then I drug in a little bit the day afterwards after travel, and I had somebody else cover the show for our team. As a matter of fact, last week, by the way, the guest we had was Representative Tom Oliverson. If you missed that, you really need to go check that out. Check our social media and our website on that, because we talked a lot about the Speaker of the House issue and that vote. And then there was a lot more drama that unfolded on that issue Saturday when the House Republican caucus had their vote for Speaker, and David Cook emerged as the one with the most votes. And then Dustin Burrows apparently wasn't happy about that, and he's tried to, put his own faction together. We're going to have a blog post come out on that too today, I think, going out in email, so you get some more updates and clarity on where that issue is, because we think it's been resolved, but some people don't. And so you want to know what's going on if you're just sort of tuning in on that. Check that out on our website. Last week's show, though, with Dr. Tom Oliverson, who is the chairman of the House Republican Caucus. But, I got two great guests today, and we could probably spend the 15 minutes that they're with me just talking about high school football, because they have quite a bit of history, and they got a lot to talk about. So I have Cameron Bryan, who's the president of the Carroll ISD School District in the North Texas area, and also Andrew Yeager, who is the vice president of that school district in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, just north of Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And, depending on who you talk to, there's Grapevine out there, there's South Lake. The high school is called South Lake Carroll, but the school district is called Carroll ISD, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. And I joke a little bit. Well, anyway, gentlemen, welcome to the Texas Values Report.
Thanks, Jonathan, for having us. We appreciate Texas Values and what you guys stand for, so appreciate you having us.
Great to be here.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, listen, we've got to spend a good bit of time together this year. The earlier this year, I guess it was really in June or July, I felt like we were out there doing two-a-days for football, because that press conference that we had was kind of warm outside, and then you guys were so generous. You gentlemen were so generous to invite us in with the air conditioning. And then we had a very important school board meeting. And I joke about the football issue because, look, South Lake Carroll, that high school has a tremendous legacy. And even, right now, you're right in the middle of the playoffs. You're in the semifinals for a state championship. You've got one of your former players, Quinn Ewers, that's in the college football playoff. And I'm just saying, when I think about South Lake Carroll, I think a lot of people think about the Dragons in football, right? And that's not a surprise. But, what's really been key for that school district is the leadership in the school district that I think is more representative, with your presence there, Cam, and also Andrew as well, that matches up with the values of that school district in that area. And look, I'm a Longhorn, I think, but I just tell you real quick, if y'all haven't seen the clip, right, when Southlake played Westlake, and, current Longhorn, who was it? Michael Taft intercepts a pass from Quinn, who was on the team. Michael was with Cade Klubnik, who the Longhorns are playing. Anyway, that's another show, but I know that y'all are probably aware of this. But I say that because I'm sure the school district in high school gets a lot of attention because of the athletics program, but you guys are matching up right there with the values. And we want to talk about the Christmas issue, because we have a state law that makes it clear that you can talk about and discuss and really celebrate Christmas in public schools. This applies to students. There are also some rights that employees have as well. And y'all did something last year with your leadership, and you decided to make it clear on the calendar that when we talk about that break, that comes halfway through December or so into the first week of January, you're going to start calling it the Christmas and New Year's break. And you guys came into leadership a year or two ago. Talk to us about why that issue is important for your particular school district and area.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Jonathan. And getting back to football real quick.
Yeah, right.
Texas and Clemson plays each other, and that's the two quarterbacks, Ewers and Klubnik, that played in that 2020 state championship game between Carroll and Westlake. So that's going to be a good matchup in the next.
Great kids, by the way. I know I don't want to not get into the Christmas issue, but I think it's fair to acknowledge these young men who are very strong Christians themselves, right? Cade and Quinn. And, competing at that level is very difficult. And so very young men that y'all can be proud of from your school district in a variety of ways.
Absolutely. And Trustee Yeager here and I have been in the community for a long time and see these guys play, when they're 8, 9, and 10 years old, and seeing them at the top level of their sport is really, really super cool. So both great guys, wish them luck, and hopefully they'll have successful pro careers as well. To get back on the Christmas issue, last year, Andrew and I were seeing all kinds of correspondence coming out from not only the district, but from teachers and principals and staff, calling it a winter break, calling it winter parties. We saw holiday break, holiday parties, everything but Christmas break and Christmas parties. And it was getting ridiculous. This cancel culture that we live in now, it's like, in order to be inclusive, you have to exclude everything, such as Christmas. And so we're like, you know what? We've had enough of this. It's a federal holiday. It's been a federal holiday since 1870. There's no reason why we can't call this federal holiday by its name, and that is Christmas.
Well, and look, when we talk about when they would mention it and say, oh, the holiday break, what holiday? I mean, it sort of begs the question. And we all know, right? And you're right. It's just like a hypersensitivity. There was a book that was out several years, almost a decade and a half or so ago, called The War on Christmas by John Gibson, who was a former personality and had a slot on Fox News in a commentary show. And look, I mean, the cases were out of control. I started this work with a case out of Plano where a kid named Jonathan Morgan, who's probably 35 by now, I don't know how old he is. I mean, this is such a long time ago, but he brought a candy cane to a winter party, to your point, and was told you can bring gifts. He brought a gift that had a candy cane, and he talked about the red being the blood of Jesus. They wouldn't let him in the room as if he had a bomb strapped to his back. I mean, it was so over the top, right? And so now we see we got a state law on this, which the law website for the law in Texas, merrychristmastexas.com, is to prevent those things from having to happen. But the flip side of that is, hey, let's exercise it on the positive side like you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And put that into action, Andrew.
Yeah, I think, Jonathan, first of all, kudos to you and to Texas Values. There are a lot of school boards who do not know the law when it comes to celebrating Christmas. And I think, Cam, when you and I were seeing this and talking about it over a year ago, is when, Jonathan, I think there was some printed material.
Yeah, and you one-pager. That's right.
Yeah,
from the website.
And I think that was something that we shared and was important. But, beyond the religious freedom aspect of this issue is, Christmas, Cam talked about 1870 was when our country made it a national holiday. Why would we not call it Christmas if our government or federal government has been calling it Christmas since then? But the cultural significance of Christmas, everything tied to it. It's celebrated by Christians and non-Christians, and I think about it, and I loved, like you guys, I'm sure, growing up with the Grinch movie. And if a school board knew what they could say and the joy they could bring students, 8,000 students in our case, nearly 1,000 faculty and staff, why would you choose to be the Grinch and take all the joy out of this time of year when you can actually play on it?
Amen.
School's tough enough for kids and for teachers. Let them have some celebrations.
Amen to that. And there was a conflict that came up. I think it was close to Fort Worth, or maybe it was Fort Worth ISD. I don't want to say it specifically. It's on our website, where there was a Santa that was going to come to one of the parties, and they're like, we can't have Santa because that violates separation of church and state. I'm like, what? What I mean? We can argue about some of those things. We don't have to, but I mean, you're right. It's very much a cultural experience and a part of what we do as Americans, and other countries do it too. But I think that, we've taken it to a higher level, and it's something that you see celebrated quite a bit. People religious or non-religious, and we put out a press release, and we're like, Santa gets left out in the cold, right? I mean, they literally banned him from coming into the school, and just over hypersensitivity. There was a school district, I think it was Frisco ISD, said at the winter party they couldn't bring red and green plates because in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus, they talk about Jesus and say that his favorite colors were red and green. I mean, it just is an overreaction and a hypersensitivity. But to your point, some of it may be legitimately. And we want to, try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't know the law. So every year, right, we do an education campaign. We put a press release out about this yesterday. As a matter of fact, I was on Todd Starnes on Newsmax last week talking about this issue because maybe people don't know. And that's our hope. Let's clear up the confusion. We have a state law. As a matter of fact, I think it was almost a unanimous support. If you can bring Republicans and Democrats together on something that's quite impressive in the Texas House, in the Senate, in 2013, because there are a lot of people too. They don't want these, they want to waste time, dealing with these issues in court when the courts have already resolved them. We just put it into state law. Cam, what is some of the reactions or responses? And I know this started last year, but back then and even since, any feedback you've gotten from people since then that you'd like to share?
A lot of relief. As soon as we made that statement at our board meeting, we started getting messages and phone calls from staff and from teachers saying, thank you so much for doing that. Now, I can go tomorrow morning in my classroom and play Christmas carols, and I can get out the nativity scene, and I don't have to worry about retaliation or, being sued. And sometimes, Jonathan, you just have to remind people, Governor Perry signed the Christmas law, enacted that in 2013. Yeah. So, we just have to remember, and Andrew likes to say this a lot, and I'm going to steal your line, Andrew, but people need to remember that the First Amendment is freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. And I think that people don't understand that simple, wording is that, look, it's okay to say Christmas. It's okay to pray. It's okay. A lot of people just say this is freedom from religion. I'm like, no, it's not. It's freedom of religion. And I think you just have to keep reminding people of that that they say, that's right.
And I like you being able to set the standard from the leadership position, from the school board position, that frees up, right? The employees and everyone. I'm following the law, right? I'm following what the school board says is the law, and this is what we're going to do. So they don't get pulled into these circumstances where they feel like, I don't know, they're trying to sort it out. As a matter of fact, I'm looking over here on my table. Maybe Ashley can grab it for me. I'm seeing we have a copy of that book, The War on Christmas. But and some of the things, they just got out of hand over the years, right? And look, there's also a historical value, if you will. Thank you, Ashley. To these to the issue of Christmas, right? I mean, it's a historical fact. Let's let students talk about it and have the discussions, right? And they want to, learn a little bit more. There are a lot of people that have moved to our country. Maybe they don't celebrate Christmases often, or they're not aware of some of that history and why that there are certain things. I mean, why is there a Christmas tree? I don't know if people have attached that to Christ in some way or whatever, but there are things that we've done in America that you see those symbols, you're like, oh, okay, there's the history of that. And to your point, it was made a federal holiday a long time ago. When's the last time you heard a federal employee complain because they got the day off for Christmas? This is the book, by the way. It's probably still in print somewhere. I can get this. The War on Christmas by John Gibson. I was in the middle of some of these court battles. By the way, Texas Values, we have made our own ornament. If people want to donate and get one of these, let me know. The Capitol makes a really nice one. The Texas Capitol, we give those out to our supporters. But one of the things that's interesting about Christmas, and you touched a little bit on this, you see a lot of charity. You see a lot of generosity, right? You see people giving, right? You see the Blue Santas or whatever they call the different, activities that are involved where kids that don't have anything or maybe are homeless or their families are struggling, they get something to share with people, right? So it teaches the kids those type of things as well, how to give to others and the joy of giving. And so, and thank God y'all have taken away a lot of the stress that comes along with it. And I'm glad for y'all doing that. I know that, you came into office a couple of years ago. There are other issues that y'all have been involved in, but to me, I don't see them as controversial. I see them as a reflection of your own community.
Yeah, I would say Cam and I have talked to various media outlets, Jonathan, and you may have heard me say this before, but unfortunately, there is a crisis of courage.
Yep.
And that is elected leaders, even at the local level where we are, who they know what is the right thing in their hearts. And for some reason, they feel like they need to kind of bend a knee to the woke mob. And I think this whole idea of, trying to expel, Christmas celebrations is just one example of many. It's been a real honor to work with Cam and our board. And the neat thing is that we have become a magnet for administrators, for teachers, for parents who are seeking school districts that represent their values. And again, we think it's just common sense, a lot of the policies that we have, but it's the courage to basically say, you know what, there's gray in this area. We're going to erase the gray.
That's right.
We're going to have a local policy, because when you're an employee or a parent or a student, the worst thing is to go about your day and not knowing where you stand. And I think that's why when Cam said we made this policy and this practice, people had relief. They knew where they stood. And I think that's
and I think for a long time, the folks that, the Grinches out there, the people that wanted to attack Christmas and create confusion, they benefited from that lack of clarity, right? That's one of the reasons we passed the state law in 2013. And people may be surprised. A lot of times the work we do and other members of the state legislature, people involved in this process, is they put something in state law that's already been established in a court case, has already been clear one place or another. But putting it in state law says, this is the official source. This is what we follow. And so it can have tremendous value. That's all we did in this case. And the law, really, it's one page. It's really short. There's not a lot that you have to say on these matters if you're smart. And your actually goal is to create clarity and make the job easier for school administrators like yourself and employees. Again, the website is merrychristmastexas.com. You can go to the website. You can find out what the state law is. You can download a one-page summary with also some details, some FAQs. What if this? What if that? We've handled all of that. You can take it to your school because really for a lot of school districts, Christmas break doesn't start until the end of next week sometimes. So those parties may be happening next week. We get questions every year. People ask, what about this? What can I do? Please email us at info@txvalues.org, whatever we can do to help. We've been in a couple of court cases before. One was with Attorney General Paxton got involved. And I'm going to share this on my feed real quick, too, so people can hear the rest of this conversation. But, look, let's hope that we see less of that. I think we have a clip we were going to play, actually, that sort of got queued up earlier on accident. Do we still have that clip, Ashley, from one of the interviews recently?
School board president in Texas is calling on officials to say Christmas break instead of holiday break during this time of year, and is officially making sure Christmas break is printed on next year's school calendar.
Received, as we all have, several correspondence this month from the district referring to a winter break, winter parties, holiday break, holiday parties, everything but Christmas break and Christmas parties. It's Christmas and New Year's break, and I think the district should refer to it as such. It is okay to recognize and observe this holiday on our campuses.
Carroll, Texas School Board President Cameron Bryan joins us now. Good morning. Merry Christmas Eve. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Merry Christmas.
Hey, listen, you did a great job. Hey, Fox News, that's pretty good. I mean, it's great to get that type of coverage and presence.
Gotcha.
And here's the thing, too. I want to make sure people know this. Not only was the law already in place in Texas, but I think our position, if you will, got a lot stronger 2 years ago when Coach Kennedy, speaking of football, won his football prayer case at the U.S. Supreme Court because we went back to a legal standard that existed before, which made it harder for the government to restrict people's free speech and people to say, oh, it's going to be this establishment clause violation and there's going to be separation of church and state issues. And that's all you're doing with this issue. You're going back to what people used to call it before, returning back to what made sense.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I was going to say that, something that Andrew mentioned earlier, and that is, our country's upside down on our head when telling people that they can say Merry Christmas hits the national news. I mean, it's insane when you have to have the courage to follow through with common sense. I mean, to me, we've got to fight this tooth and nail. And that's what we're doing here at Carroll ISD.
Well, you guys are doing a great job of it. And speaking of national news, I mean, I think Trump first said it in his first term that, when he becomes president, we're going to say Merry Christmas. And I know he repeats that phrase a lot. He takes office in January. On January 20th, I believe, is the date of the inauguration. And so I do think for school districts out there, look, it's not required. Just so you know, if you look at the website, merrychristmastexas.com, it's not that you're going to be required to do certain things. The school districts get to decide, but it eliminates this reason or this excuse, oh, we're not sure what to do, or we don't think we can, right? So the school districts can decide, like Carroll ISD, how they want to handle it, but the freedom is there. So they can no longer say, well, the law doesn't allow us. They can't try to blame someone else. They can't also try to say, well, the ACLU, we beat the ACLU on these issues numerous times. So all those boogeyman arguments and so on should be left to the side. But I think that with President Trump and others, you're seeing, I think it'll give people a little bit more comfort to say, okay, I feel more confident doing that because from the top down, including our governor and others in our state, you'll have that backup. I'm sure Ken Paxton would come to your aid if you needed him.
Yeah. We'd love that.
Even though I don't think it'll be necessary. So, well, listen, I look forward to seeing y'all soon. We spent some time together, and I'll just have a little fun as we leave. There's this, oh my gosh, this social media post that was put up because we worked on the Save Women's Sports issue and the Title IX issue with y'all earlier in the school year, which I'm sure you'll get some relief from when President Trump comes into office and not having the Biden administration. But there's this social media post up where I posted it where they have Rudolph now being called, I don't remember what it was, Rolanda, dressing up as a girl to take over, the female reindeer games. I'm like, oh my gosh, the days that we live in, okay?
Yeah.
And putting those issues together. But to your point, this is about returning to common sense, making it clear what the law is, and demonstrating the courage to say, we're going to exercise our rights as well.
Yeah, Jonathan, I don't know if you know this or not, but Carroll ISD, we sued the Biden administration on his unlawful Title IX changes, and we won an injunction in federal court that Carroll ISD doesn't have to apply those. And hopefully the Trump administration, the first thing that they do is also say that this is unlawful, and let's go back to what Title IX was originally intended for.
Well, we're going to make the recommendation that be one of the first things that they do, but I do want to leave with saying it makes our job easier when we have school board members like yourselves, Cameron, you and Andrew, that stand up, because we know the law's on our side, but unless we have local leaders that are willing to exercise that as well and stand with us, it makes it a lot more difficult. There are 1,200 school districts across the state, but I tell you what, Carroll ISD is one that gets a little bit more attention, and you guys are doing great with the platform that you're on. And I know it's for common sense and not for some personal gain, but I think you're aware of that as well, and I think you're going to have an impact on other school districts across the state. In addition to the ones that you've already been able to do that as well. So thanks for all that you're doing, and thanks for being on the show. And Merry Christmas to both of you and all the great people at Carroll ISD.
Merry Christmas, go Dragons.
As we say, Carroll, Merry Christmas.
Go Dragons. It's going to be fun state playoffs. A lot to talk about. Okay,
Thanks,
I'm going to
Jonathan.
let these gentlemen go, and I got a couple of wrap-up points I want to make. I would talk about Christmas, every day of December if I could, because I get a lot of joy from it as well. I mentioned we have our own ornament. We also have the Texas Capitol ornament that if you're in our top 200 supporters, which is a group of some very generous people, you will be getting this in the mail soon. And I'm super excited about doing our own ornament as much as I love what the state capitol does. I like having our own to remind people of the work that we do, but also to, have a message that is even more Christ-focused, even though I know there's a lot of great stuff the Texas Capitol ornament does as well. So just another reason you can still try to get into that list if you want, or we can put you on a waiting list if you want to send in a donation. But please consider a donation of any type. It's not about the gifts and all that. I know people give to support our work. txvalues.org is the website to do that, where you can make that tax-deductible donation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're going to have a matching grant coming up pretty soon, so your donations would be doubled. By the way, we got a couple of events coming up in San Antonio this Friday, which is tomorrow. Still got a couple of seats available. Most of these events are complimentary, or they're not very expensive. It's a chance to get our people together, have a meal, get updated on our work, and if you want to donate, you can. Austin is next Friday. I believe that's the 20th. We've got Houston on the west side December 18th. So if you want to check that out, we had an event with Riley Gaines in the Houston area on Sunday. That was really northwest, like the Woodlands, almost Montgomery County area. This one on next Wednesday, December 18th, is at lunch at Maggiano's. It's near the Galleria. I'm sure you've never been around that area to go shopping this time of year. Another reason to come around that area. It's beautiful around that part of Houston this time of year, but December 18th, Houston. And check our website. A lot of great events to see us in person and get updated. Probably be some new information about what's happening on the Texas Speaker of the House issue, what's going on State Board of Education, some work we're going to do during the state legislative session. Listen, great update out of Odessa. We're still holding strong on that ordinance out there to keep men from going into the women's restroom, showers, and locker rooms. Shout out to all the great people out in Odessa. And look, who knows? And look, if you hear some conflicts going on in the classroom or anywhere in Texas on the Christmas issue and attacks, please let us know so we can come to an aid as soon as possible. And we've had tremendous success on all those issues over the years, so don't hesitate. We can respond on the drop of a hat and get the protection you need for the First Amendment. So just more reasons to consider donating at txvalues.org to protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.